KTOO 104.3 Juneau and KAUK 91.7 Juneau Ak Bay.
Okay. Here we go. 10 seconds. Broadcasting live from the homelands of the Occoquan. It's Friday, April 11th, 2025. I'm your host, Boston Christopher. Gunath Chish, Hawa, Toksik Newsome, Salamat. Thank you for joining the conversation. You can also join us on our live stream on YouTube at ktoo.org/JPM Live or over on the KTOO Facebook page. Today, it's Folk Fest week here on Juneau Afternoon. We've had fantastic artists all week long, and we thought we would end the week in a special way. We are downstairs today in the big KTOO studio, and we've invited you to join us. To those of you here in the studio, if you are listening on the radio or watching online on YouTube or Facebook, Gunath Chish and welcome in. We have the 2025 guest dance band in-house today, Deke, Dickerson, Western Swing All-Stars. We are going to get our bodies moving, and we'll chat with these wonderful musicians. Music and conversation with Deke, Dickerson, Western Swing All-Stars coming up this hour on Juneau Afternoon.
Handsome grass, ka eat with the shuyi, where kashuk ayitin. Jin kat ka kay jin talk, anakaya haanikak, Gunath Chish.
Support for Juneau Afternoon comes from Heritage Coffee Roasting Company, providing Juneau with locally roasted coffee for over 40 years, with cafes and drive-through locations throughout Juneau. More at heritagecoffee.com. Support for Juneau Afternoon comes from Alaska Airlines Club 49. Membership information available at club49hub.com. Okay. KTOO would like to acknowledge that we broadcast from Tlingit Ani and the homelands of the Occoquan. The specific area where our building sits is the ancestral home of the Clenedi, or dog salmon people of the Occoquan. We acknowledge those families of the Clenedi who've made use of this land and waterways for thousands of years and still cherish it as an important part of their way of life for today and for future generations. Gunath Chish. And Gunath Chish, Yayadi, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to welcome to the studio our special guest today, Deke, Dickerson, Western Swing All-Stars. Let's welcome them to the KTO studios and our red carpet stage. The Deke, Dickerson, Western Swing All-Stars combines veteran West Coast and Texas musicians well-versed in the style made famous by Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, Tex Williams and the Western Caravan, and Asleep at the Wheel. They are on the stage tonight at the Jack, the dance party over at the Jack. They'll be over there tonight, Friday, April 11th at 9:20 p.m., and then also tomorrow night, Saturday, April 12th at 9 p.m. Let's have a song.
All right, let's do a song. Shall we do a little hubbing it?
Yeah.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wagon load of trouble, big steep hill to climb. Honey, she done left me and I ain't got a dime. Keep hubbing it, son. It's your wagon load. Keep right on hubbing it down that lonesome road off Katy Shore. How's the world treating you? Made your fortune yet? Ain't nobody treating me. I pay for what I get. Keep hubbing it, son. It's your wagon load. Keep right on hubbing it down that lonesome road. All rusty. You better pass it to Brother Ian now. Some folks born to lose, and some folks born to win. Some folks born to hub it, and that's where I come in. Keep hubbing it, son. It's your wagon load. Keep right on hubbing it down that lonesome road. Oh, Brad Fordham on the bass. Pass it back to Miss Lisa Pankratz on the drum. I pulled tons of cotton and I pulled fields of corn. Guess I'll be hubbing it. Gabriel blows his horn. Keep hubbing it, son. It's your wagon load. Keep right on hubbing it down that lonesome road. Down that lonesome road. Thank you all very much.
That's what we're talking about. Okay, so this is great. So first question, Deke, because I know you have many different bands that you're with. You perform with a bunch of different people. But can you tell us how the Western Swing All-Stars came about?
Sure. Well, I love playing Western Swing music, but I don't really get that many opportunities to play it. And actually, our local liaison, Mr. Reber Stein, said, hey, I think I got you a folk fest gig if you could put a real killer Western swing band together. And so I did. These are all people that I know from different parts of the country. We've got 3 from Texas, 2 from Portland, Oregon, and they're all exceptional players. And this is actually right here. This is the debut of the Western Swing All-Stars. Yeah.
Now, I was looking this up because I didn't know much about this, but this idea that West Coast roots rock, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, you know, I have a band back home called Deke and the Whippersnappers. In fact, we have 2 of those guys here in the house tonight.
Nice.
And the big bulk of what I do is rockabilly, which is sort of, you know, early rock and roll music played from the 1950s. But, you know, all these things are interconnected. Western swing, rockabilly, surf. I play a lot of it, and it all kind of has twangy guitars and a lot of the same 3 chords.
And how did music first find you? When did it come to your life?
Well, I was a freak, sort of misplaced into the wrong era, because I just remember growing up and all these kids were playing popular music at the time, and even 5 or 6 years old, I was like, I hate this music. I really, really despise it. I'm not going to name any names. But then when I finally heard older music, I mean music that was already 30, 40 years old at the time, I was like, I like this. And so it just kind of stuck with me my whole life.
Wow, that's interesting. That's awesome. And I know you're also a journalist, and I like this word, a guitar-eologist. A guitar-eologist.
Well, a guitar-keologist.
Guitar-keologist, there we go. I like that.
Yep.
And what does that mean?
Well, you know, for those, and I know that we've got some people here in the audience that are interested in vintage guitars, vintage amplifiers, and man, we can go real geeky and get real deep in the weeds with this stuff. But it was just something that has always kind of fascinated me. From an early age, I grew up in Columbia, Missouri, and this was in the 1980s. I'll date myself a little bit. This was before really vintage guitars were given much value, but all the old blues guys and all the old bluegrass guys, they all said, yeah, don't buy a new guitar. They're terrible. Get an older one. You know, get something from the 50s or the 40s or the 30s. They're way better. That's a strange concept, but I learned that it was true.
And this guitar is special.
This is a special guitar that I brought up just for Folk Fest, just because I was given this task to put together the Western Swing All-Stars. This guitar turned up in a trailer park in Springfield, Oregon, of all places. And it was a very odd story. The guy who owned it, his mom married a very famous Western swing musician, a guy named Jimmy Widener, and then both Jimmy Widener and his mom died, and he was just left with this guitar, and he was sending out to whom it may concern emails, one of which got forwarded to me, and I wound up buying the guitar from the guy, but this, it doesn't look like much, right? But this guitar actually belonged to Bob Wills. He gave it to Jimmy Widener when he joined the Texas Playboys in 1946.
Whoa.
And then Jimmy Widener played this guitar on tons of records. He played it on not only Bob Wills records, but Spade Cooley records, Roy Lanham and the Whippoorwills, Merle Travis records, Speedy West and Jimmy Bryant. So if you're going to play rhythm guitar on Western Swing, this is like the rhythm guitar for Western Swing.
That is amazing. Is there anything unique about the sound that it makes? Can you just play a little something here?
Well, I will just say this much, that, when you play a lot of old guitars, you can tell the ones that were really loved and played a lot.
Yeah.
And this one, the first time I put my hands on it, I'm like, this guy played this guitar probably 500,000 hours. You can just tell. It fits right. Everything's worn in properly. It's like the most worn in, nice pair of boots ever.
Or a good baseball glove. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's that sort of thing. But when you're playing this sort of
nice.
It's just perfect for that sort of thing.
That's awesome. Now you mentioned
it's terrible for heavy metal. It's the worst.
Luckily, that's not what we're doing here this week.
We're not doing that today.
Now you mentioned Merle Travis, and I want to mention this. You have a book, it's 480 pages on Merle Travis. Can you tell us a little bit about the Merle Travis biography?
Well, do we have any Merle Travis fans here?
Yeah, look at that.
Thank you for indulging me. He's sort of a famous guitar player, but he's also a songwriter who wrote a couple of well-known standards like 16 Tons and Smoke, Smoke, Smoke That Cigarette and Dark as a Dungeon. And he was a fascinating character because he was a real bohemian sort of hillbilly. He was a guy who had real extreme highs where he could just create incredible music, and he was a cartoonist, and he made these guitar inventions, and then he just had extreme lows. He had a lot of problems with alcohol and pill addiction, almost died about 30 times, and just a fascinating guy, and nobody had ever written a book about him. So I met his daughters in Southern California at country music shows, and I said, we got to get a book, and eventually I gained their trust, and they let me into this storage unit where all of Merle's stuff had existed since he had passed away in the 1980s, and he had saved every scrap of paper. It was incredible, for a guy that was married 5 times and maybe more and had moved all over the country several different times. He had saved every scrap of paper, so it was incredible, and that's why it's a 480-page book. At the end of the day, it was almost like I've got too much stuff here.
That's amazing. And you also have a couple other books, The Strat in the Attic, Thrilling Stories of Guitar Archaeology.
Yeah.
You actually have 2 volumes of that.
That's right.
Because there's so much. Is there a 3rd volume coming?
No, the publishing company went out of business. I don't think that was any of my fault. It just may be the nature of print books, but
I love that.
Okay.
Okay.
Plus, they were paying really well, and so I guess that probably put them out of business.
That's right. Will you go ahead and introduce the band for us?
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled to be here because every single one of these people is just a fantastic musician, all the way from Austin, Texas. This is Katie Shore. Katie spent, how long were you in Asleep at the Wheel?
8 years.
8 years,
Full-time.
yeah. Which, is the best known Western swing band working today. They won multiple Grammys. And then you've also shared the stage with Willie Nelson and, just a whole bunch of other Texas artists. She's, like Lisa and Brad, she's one of these people where you could probably name almost any Texas artist, and she has been on stage with them at least one time. But give it up for Miss Katie Shore. And then back there on the bass, originally a Canadian. Do you feel more at home up in this cool weather?
I'm like a southerner.
Yeah, exactly. But he's been in Texas a very, very long time. I should mention that Brad and Lisa are husband and wife. They're married. And both of them have played with Dave Alvin for many, many years. That's been a really good gig for you guys. And before that, the two of you guys played together with Billy Joe Shaver, right? For a little while. Brad spent a lot of time with Jerry Jeff Walker. And Lisa, I met Lisa through the rockabilly scene. You know, she played with Ronnie Dawson and Nick Curran. And again, both Brad and Lisa are people where you could name just about any Texas artist, and you guys have been on stage with them at least once.
Gratefully, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Lucky us.
And these two fellas over here, I met Rusty, the steel guitar player, down in Los Angeles. You're from Long Beach originally, aren't you? But then he moved up to Portland, and there's a real scene for this kind of music up in Portland, and some really, really great musicians. And that's where I met Ian Miller over here. And it's a rather incestuous thing here because Ian's brother Chris has played with Dave Alvin for a number of years, so we all kind of know each other. But these guys have worked together a lot in Portland and have worked on a lot of twin guitar stuff, which is really fun when you're playing Western swing. Currently, you guys are playing with Reeb and Caleb, right? Or Caleb and Reeb, who are also up here this week, right? And I knew you for playing both standard guitar and steel guitar with the Lucky Stars, who were a fabulous Western swing band in Los Angeles.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, give it up. Okay. Katie, I'm going to come back around to you and talk to you for just a minute, if that's all right. Hop on there.
Sure.
Now, I learned that you were inspired by your grandfather. At what age did you start playing this little instrument here?
Well, 5 or 6, depending on whether you ask my mom or dad. Somewhere in there, though. Yeah.
Okay. And I love that you said, is it true that you said you have the goal that people, that you told your mom, I think it was, that you had a goal of creating music that people could clap and dance to, but you said that at a really young age.
Yeah, well, that's true. I grew up listening to old music, and I just always loved it, and I love to dance, and yeah. Clap your hands and stomp your feet. That's what I'm all about.
I love that.
It. Yeah.
That's so good. Now, I also want to ask you, what is a commercial music degree? You got a degree in commercial music. What does that mean?
Yeah, it means that I didn't have to play classical music to get an education. I don't read music very well, but where I went to a community college in Waco, Texas, and actually Johnny Gimbel's a famous Texas fiddle player that played with Bob Wills, and his son Dick Gimbel taught at that school, and his guitar player Kenny Frazier had taught at that school for a long time, so I could study swing and then start playing.
I love that.
At an affordable cost.
Now, Deke mentioned you are you still part of Asleep at the Wheel, or were you with them for a little while? Are you not with them anymore, or you still are?
Well, we say it's like the CIA. You never really get out.
Yeah, because there's been I was going to ask you, do you know how many members of Asleep at the Wheel there are?
Yes.
How many?
Well, over 100, I'd say.
Yeah,
I'm
over
not
the
really
years,
sure,
right?
But I do play with them sometimes. I was full-time for 8 years, and
okay.
Still get to play with them here and there, which is really great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you're going to be, besides playing tonight and tomorrow night at the Jack, as part of the dance concerts over at the Jack for the Folk Festival, you're going to be at the Old Settlers Festival.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Coming up at a couple weeks.
That's right.
And what is the Old
Looking
Settlers
forward to that.
Festival?
It's a festival that's been around for quite a long time, and there's just camping and jamming and great music, so I'm looking forward to being a part of that. It'll be great.
This is your first time to Alaska?
This is my 3rd time. I've been to Anchorage a couple times, but my first time to Juneau.
Well, welcome to Southeast. Good
I
to
love
for
it.
being here.
I love it. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to some of the band members after we hear. Let's do 2 songs. Let's do it. Let's have a
Well,
party.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to do a couple of songs myself, but I also want to feature Katie and Lisa, and since you were just talking to Katie, why don't we have her sing a song now?
Okay, let's do it.
Well, here's a Cindy Walker tune. It's one of my favorites. It's called The Day You Left Me. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. On the books, this day will be known to all officially as the day that you left me, the day you left me. Though my heart could testify that this date is just a lie, for the day has long gone by, the day you left me. For you've been here, not really here. I know, how well I know. You packed your dreams and left my heart such a long, long time ago. Now you just walked out the door, and you won't be back anymore. For you'd left me long before the day you left me. You've been here, not really here. I know, how well I know. You packed your dreams and left my heart such a long, long time ago. Now you just walked out the door, and you won't be back anymore. For you'd left me long before the day you left me. You had left me long before the day you left me.
Isn't she great? Now give it up for Miss Katie Shore. Okay, now we're supposed to do 2 songs in a row, and I think we should feature our other vocalist back there on the drums, Miss Lisa Pankratz.
All right. All right.
Now,
Let's do it. What, were you going to ask me something?
Well, I was going to tell a joke, and then I held back.
Well, I don't think you can do that. Come on, y'all. You want to hear the joke, right? I don't know
Well,
what it is.
I mean, I thought I was, at a show or something, but I'm on TV. I was going to say, you just put on your reading glasses, didn't you?
I did.
And I didn't know that drummers could read. Hey! I'm sorry about
Better
that.
to see you with, my
I
dear.
literally couldn't help myself. What are we doing, Lisa?
Oh, well, let's do another Cindy Walker song. It's called Bubbles in My Beer. It's one of my favorites. And at the risk, we always had to be careful because luckily we're all from all over, and Deke's bringing in that West Coast Western swing. But when you come from the heart of Texas, it's really hard not to just make it a Cindy Walker tribute show. But we love her. She's wonderful. She's from Mahia, not far from where you went to school. Here's one called Bubbles in My Beer. It's the happiest, saddest song you'll ever hear. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Bar alone I'm sitting, apart from the laughter and the cheer, while scenes from the past rise before me, just watching the bubbles in my beer. A vision of someone who loved me brings a lone silent tear to my eye, and I know that my life has been a failure. Just watch watching the bubbles in my beer. Travel a road paved with heartaches and tears, seeing the past rise before me while watching the bubbles in my beer. That's the past I wasted, of the heart that I've broken, and all the golden chances that have passed me by, and the dreams that I've made now are empty as the bubbles in my beer.
That's Miss Lisa Pankratz back there singing and playing the drums.
I messed up a word, Cindy. I'm sorry.
You are listening to community-supported Juneau Afternoon on KTOO at 104.3 Juneau and 91.7 Juneau Ock Bay. We're also streaming on KTOO's YouTube and Facebook pages. And if you're in the area, we still have about a half-hour show. If you're over at the Jack or if you're over at Centennial Hall, you can get yourself down here. Come see the world premiere of Deke Dickerson Western Swing All-Stars. That was pretty awesome. I want to switch to our guitar players over here. Let me get out the way so the cameras can get you. Radio World can hear you fine. This is Ian Miller.
Hello.
Lead guitar, and he has been known to play with the Barn Door Slammers.
I actually did not play with him. I played with him a couple of times.
Oh, you played with him a couple times.
But
okay.
I'm buddies with him.
Buddies with him. Okay.
Very
And
close.
where do you live now?
Portland, Oregon.
You live in Portland.
Yes.
Okay. And so are you gigging around Portland down
I
there?
am constantly. Yes.
Nice. And how does that work for you down there in Portland? What's the scene like?
Oh, it's great. It's busy.
Yeah.
It's definitely busy. A lot of great players. A lot of great players playing together and separately. I mean, the word incestuous is a thing. I mean, we're all kind of working the same territory,
Yeah.
trying to learn from each other and just push each other further into, more exciting ways of expressing ourselves in the Western swing kind of sound, and swing too. I play some kind of more straight swing stuff too, but I play the same no matter what, so it doesn't really matter.
So swing means more
like traditional swing,
swing.
like 30s, 40s type stuff. But, I came to it through listening to country, back to Western swing, and then going back further, so it's all kind of in the same world for me.
Now, your guitar looks a little historic.
It's
as
old,
well.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your
this
guitar.
is,
Or
Russ can tell
guitar.
you more because he's the one that actually found it for me, but it is a 1947 Harmony H50, I believe, right? And if you look at the headstock, it's got a little lightning bolt through the H shield there. I think that was to let people know, hey, we have an electric instrument now.
Yeah.
And it was the top of the line, I believe, for Harmony guitars at that time. It was found by Rusty here, stripped of everything. It didn't have any electronics, didn't have any tuners, didn't have a tailpiece, had nothing, no bridge. And a, as-is bin at a guitar store for $50.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, $50. Now, there's reasons for that, and I won't totally show you, but there had to be some significant repairs. There were some early repairs done to it that were, we'll say, eccentric.
Okay.
But they work. It's still here.
Sounds great.
And so we collected some parts for it. I was telling Deke this the other night that we were working on trying to get it together and get parts together for it. And then I was going to bed one night and I was laying in bed and it suddenly hit me. Wait a minute. Did they strip what was on the guitar at the guitar store and try to sell it separately? So I went there the next day. And sure enough, they did. I already had the pickup that I wanted, so I didn't buy the pickup. And they were selling that for considerably more than I paid for the guitar. But they had the original bridge, and I was so excited to find that. So I think a lot of the soul came back to the guitar by getting that bridge on it. If you could see it, it's pretty worn in.
Yeah.
But it sounds great. You
Yeah,
know?
it sounds
love this thing.
lovely.
Changed my life.
And how did the music find you? Were you also a youngster?
As expressed earlier, I come from a musical family, and I'm the youngest of three, and there was a big gap before I came along. So music was just everywhere in my house growing up. Always people having like what they would call a guitar pull, where people would just all be trading songs and stuff in the living room when I was growing up. And what's funny about that is that it was such a sort of just way of life that I actually thought I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, didn't really care about being a guitar player. This is when I'm like 6, 7 years old. By the time I was like 9 years old and saw the Buddy Holly story, I'm like, oh, I want to play guitar. I think guitar is cool, And so one of the first things I learned how to play all the way through, probably not very well, was That'll Be the Day. Which, if this mic wasn't in my hand, I could show you the first thing.
Hand it over to Rusty there.
I think I learned how to kind of do a really not great version of. And I was off to the races, basically.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about sort of the West Coast sound. What does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me? For me personally, one of the things that got me deeply into listening and playing country music was West Coast country music, California country music specifically, even more specifically Bakersfield type stuff like Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, Tommy Collins, Wynn Stewart, that type of stuff, which I love the twanginess of the guitar. I love the sound of the records, especially like the deepness of the reverb and the kind of clickiness of the bass and the things that I heard. And I just wanted to sound like that,
Nice.
It seems like there's kind of a not very big difference between the sounds of the records of pop music in that era and the sounds of country music in that era, especially stuff all done at Capitol Records or thereabouts. So to me, it wasn't a big sideways step to like make that sort of move into playing that kind of music. So that's kind of what it means to me.
Yeah, Deke.
Can I just interject for half a second?
Please do.
Well, I would just say that of all these workshops that are happening tomorrow at Folk
Oh,
Fest,
yeah.
I'm doing one at 10:30 that's all about the history of Western swing, and I'll go into your question just a little bit. But the real simple thing that I'll throw in here on the show is that, Appalachian country music, old-timey bluegrass, traditional country music and honky-tonk, it was pretty much done in sort of theater-type environments where people would sit down and they would be quiet and they would watch an act on stage. But then on the West Coast, it was a much more sort of rough and rowdy thing. And it came from Texas, but then it sort of got louder and even more rowdy when the instruments became amplified and they started playing to crowds of 10,000 people in Southern California, which was a thing that really exploded during World War II. But just to answer your question, the biggest difference is that, Western swing played on the West Coast had drums, electrified instruments, and they were playing to these huge crowds of dancers, as opposed to, like I mentioned, the old-timey bluegrass crowds that were playing to sit-down audiences mostly.
I see. Okay.
But I'll be going over a whole bunch of that stuff at 10:30. I hope some people show up.
Is that tomorrow or Sunday?
What is tomorrow? I'm a musician.
Tomorrow's Saturday.
Yeah, it's Saturday.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, Saturday. Tomorrow at 10:30.
It's just a good thing to mention that if you're listening out there, that there are workshops at the Folk Fest, not just nightly music. They're on Saturday all morning and Sunday all morning as well. I think they start at like 10:30, and they go for a couple
I do the
hours.
first one doing the history of Western swing, and then Rusty's going to do one about Western swing steel guitar. The three of us are going to do one about Western swing guitar and rhythm guitar. And then you're doing one on fiddle. You guys are doing a bass and drums one, right? Okay, so it's
Wow, they put you to work, basically, right?
Yeah.
That's good.
Well,
And-
playing music we do for free, but the workshops is what we get paid for.
That's right.
And Ian, where can we find you online? Are you out there somewhere where people can follow you?
I'm not the best self-promoter in the world, but yeah. Hey, what's the radio?
He's like, don't give his secret away.
That was up. Yeah,
Well, I'll tell you this. In doing my research,
You'll see me on YouTube if you look around.
Okay, I was going to tell you, doing my research for this band, Ian was like super secret spy. He was really hard to find details on.
I'm sorry.
So no, it's not. It's fine. It's really good that somebody can be, still like unfindable a little bit, which I like.
I don't like the sound of that, but okay.
There's like 5 million Ian Millers out there.
It's true. Some of them are guitar players too, which makes it kind of weird.
That's right. Well, that's Ian Miller, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
though?
please do.
I want to say that, like, even though my journey, into playing country and Western swing and all that was on its way, it wasn't until I met this guy that it really pushed me deeper and further towards kind of where I am now in terms of my ability and ear and being able to do stuff. And he'll get into this too. The more we learned to play parts together, it was amazing to find a guy that could be as meticulous in learning and practicing as my brain works. And so he would just sit there in his music room for hours and work on parts and never get bored and keep doing it. And we would lose time, And so ever since, we've just had this long-standing relationship as buddies and play buddies and pickin' pals. That's right.
Pickin' pals.
See, we're psychic too. So.
And you're talking about Rusty Blake, who
That's
we're
right.
going to pass the mic to now. We're going to say hi to Rusty.
And we have a record together too, and he'll probably tell you about that.
Okay. Whoa. Yeah. Ian Miller. Well, Rusty, let's start there. Tell us about the album that you guys have coming out.
So much like Ian, I'm not much of a self promoter, but a friend of ours said, "Well, you need to make a record. You need to make a steel guitar instrumental record. You just need to, and I'm going to put it all together, and I'm going to do all the work and put up the money, and we're going to do this." And I said, I guess I can live with that. So I worked up the material. Ian and I got together, like he's saying, and just locked ourselves away and worked up a record's worth of material. And then the guy who was going to do all the work basically disappeared. He set up one session for us, and then he split town. It was I'm not going to say names. We love him. He's a great friend. So basically, we were stuck there kind of holding the bag, and we carried it through. We somehow made it work, and we're really proud of it. And we have him here with us this weekend.
Nice. Okay.
And also the title, I'm most proud of the title. It's called Lowering the Bar.
Okay.
We should play a song off of that, right?
We should. Let's do that.
We will in a second here. I want to talk about this instrument, though, the pedal steel guitar. Can you describe what that means and what that is?
Yeah, sure. So this technically is not a pedal steel guitar. This is just a steel guitar, or sometimes they'll call it a straight steel.
Okay.
Or some people call it a lap steel. You could technically play this on your lap, but it's on legs, obviously. The evolution is the steel guitar was originated in Hawaii, made its way over to the States in the early part of the 20th century, and kind of became a craze. Everyone was really into it. You'll see old pictures of big orchestras and huge, just hundreds of people playing lap steels. It found its way into country music, still in the acoustic days, and eventually the instrument was electrified, and they wanted more tunings, because you play it with a bar, right? So you just have a straight, but you can't alter those pitches on this kind of instrument. So they had to have another tuning that had a different sort of voicing, so you'd have multiple necks. And eventually they got up to having 4 necks on this thing, and then somebody devised a mechanism that could change the pitches mechanically, and that's what attached to the pedals eventually.
Oh,
and that's
okay.
a pedal steel. Like this gentleman over here was playing last night at the Imperial Bar.
It was playing
It takes over your life.
Yeah.
It's a
So
sink or swim.
normally, if you had the pedals here, you'd also be doing stuff with your feet?
Yeah. You'd be sitting down, and you'd have 8, 9, or 10 pedals, and things with your knees, both knees, and a volume pedal with the other foot. And people liken it to flying a helicopter, which I've never tried.
But maybe you could.
It's much lower stakes.
I love that. Now, you're also in the Pacific Northwest, right?
Yes, I live in Portland for the last 20 years.
Okay. And how did the music find you?
Well, I come from, as Deke said, Long Beach, California, which sounds like I'd, be surfing or something, but that's really like a very Midwestern and Southern kind of a town for being in California because of all the transplants coming, a lot of it during the war, to work in the defense industry and bringing their music and their culture with them. So that's kind of how I grew up. And no one played music in my family, but I was around it, and I kind of somehow coerced them to get me music lessons when I was young.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's just been, filled your life.
Yes, absolutely.
Does it, and do you give your life to it, or do you sometimes go, wow, I could have been an architect?
You know, I love it. I'm happy with that decision to get into music.
Yeah.
You know, luckily, I'm not a full-time musician like Deke is, and I guess all you guys really. I'm a luthier. I work on instruments, so I'm kind of. By the way. Thanks. And actually, I built this instrument.
Oh wow.
Save for the pickups and stuff, which I salvaged from other instruments. But no, I'm happy with it. You know.
Awesome. Well, it is so nice to meet you.
You too.
Thanks for being here. We are, this is Juneau Afternoon on KTOO. Our guests today are Deke, Dickerson, Western Swing All-Stars. We're going to hear another song, and then we're going to talk to, I guess, the married rhythm section.
But we were just talking about this record that you guys did, so let's do, is this the title, or the first song on the album? Yeah, so do it, a little thing that you wrote called Freckles. Rusty Blake, Ian Miller, Freckles.
And Rusty, when is your album coming out?
4 years ago.
Oh, 4.
Actually, 5 years ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic. Perfect
okay.
timing.
Awesome.
So we have them here. It's also on streaming platforms and such.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure we let people know they can hear it now then. Okay, that's
It
awesome.
reminded me of when I backed up Don Maddox of the legendary Maddox Brothers and Rose, who was 93 years old at the time, and when we played with him, he'd say, "I'd like to play my latest Columbia record. Came out in 1955.
Well, and speaking of history, Deke, I just wanted to mention this. Teenie Metcalf came up to me during that song and told me a fact.
Okay.
Merle Travis
Yeah.
played at the folk festival in the 70s.
Wow. Oh.
And also at the original Crystal Saloon. So
Wow.
we're celebrating 50 years of the Folk Fest this
I
year.
did not know that.
And it's just basically everybody's been, which is awesome.
I
That's so
did
good.
know that he loved to come up to Alaska. He came up to Alaska a lot because he loved to hunt and fish. So he came up a
Yeah.
lot, but I did not know that he did this particular festival or played there. That's incredible.
Really cool. This is Juneau Afternoon from KTOO. We're going to head over to the rhythm section. We're going to talk to Brad Fordham, who you got to hold that for me.
Hey, thank you.
And Brad is one of our Canadian brothers.
Yeah. Long ago and far away.
Although I know you've been, you're married.
Yes.
And you have been in the States for a couple decades now?
Oh, yeah. I actually was imported there in the 90s, 1990s, the 1900s, folks. But
I love that. Now
Yes,
you
I was very
are
blessed to be taken out of Austin.
You and Lisa are both Guilty Ones, and what I mean by that is you're part of Dave Alvin and the Guilty Ones, which
That's
is
right.
kind of cool.
I can talk in here, right?
Yeah, she's got one. She's good to go. But I have to ask you, Brad, because to me, bass players are always the coolest people in the band. For
We
me,
thought it was drummers.
for me, it was those days, you know, because you remember, like, when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, you'd always see the bass player in the back with, like, a cigarette hanging out of their mouth, and sunglasses on, and just kind of, like, chilling back there. And so I just want to ask, maybe I should ask Lisa, is Brad cool?
Super cool.
Super cool, she says. Okay, that's really awesome. Marriage material, yeah, for sure. And so I'm getting that history from everybody. So how did the sound find you? How did the music find you when you were young?
I came from a pretty musical family, but I'm still amazed I'm the only one that went,
Pro,
still never called the job. Never called the job. And I was lucky. The part of Ontario that I grew up in, I'm a Great Lakes kid, Lake Huron, and I got to Toronto as quick as I could. I mean, it's like our New York City or whatever, and that's where all the clubs are. The Horseshoe Tavern, the El Macomb. Horseshoe Tavern, I cut my teeth at on Queen Street in Toronto, and it's been going since 1947. It's the only club now that can say that both Hanks played it. Williams and, for us, Snow. So,
oh, that's so awesome.
yeah, but the part of Ontario I grew up in, I was very lucky. I mean, a lot of folk and country, and Gord Lightfoot was from right up the road, and when Neil Young sings about there's a town in Northern Ontario, that one's about 30 miles from mine. So yeah, it was
nice. And how did you pick this instrument? How did that find you?
I think it kind of picked me. I always gravitated towards the lower registers, even when, that's funny, I was just having this discussion with my buddy Xander, a bass player, last night, and my first guitar was a nylon string guitar. And I always loved, I think we didn't have much money for all the strings, but when the top ones broke, it's like, I always really liked the sound of the bottom ones, especially on gut strings. Still do. That's a Willie Nelson solo. And, but yeah, as soon as I always wanted to play an electric bass, and unfortunately my high school, they'd moved on from having upright basses, and everything had become electrified. We're like, what happened to the basses? So,
oh, no.
Yeah, it was the 80s. And,
now
but yeah, as soon as I could get my hands on one.
Yeah, for sure. Now this is a stand-up bass. Do you also play bass guitar?
Yeah, quite a bit. When you come from Toronto, you've got to play an electric bass. There's a strong tradition of Canadian bass players around there. Rick Danko, Geddy Lee, for those of you there. And yeah, electric bass is all around.
I love that. And I know you all live in Texas, I think Deke said, right?
Yeah.
But for you, with this sort of, we're talking about this West Coast sound, what does that mean in relation to Austin or Texas versus, let's say, the West Coast sound?
Well, yeah, for me, it's
Western swing, you mean, or just?
Well, there's this like idea of like West Coast sound, like it's different. Like Deke was describing it a little bit,
There
right?
is, yeah, okay.
But is there a difference between that and what you do when you're playing with folks in Texas, or is it all the same?
It's all pretty much the same. I think
You're next.
Yeah, you're good next, but it's like that's what we love about when the California boys all come to Texas. We love it, and we of course love getting to go there. And but yeah, I think Deke already touched on a little bit. For us, it's the and a lot of the Texans and the Oklahomans migrated west and took a lot of it with them. But the West Coast sound to me, as far as the hardcore honky-tonk sound, it's like, yeah, that's another reason why I wanted to play electric bass, because it's buckaroos all the way. It's just hard charging. I believe Buck called it the freight train, and it's like, I wish I'd been able to witness some of those shows back in the 60s. I've spoke to a lot of people who said it was all white lights, and when they came out in rhinestone suits and electric Fender everything, it was loud and
Nice.
Rocking.
Nice.
But yeah, as far as the swing stuff, that's why I was so enamored with getting to be imported to Austin, because there was actually a country swing band in Canada that was quite popular, called Prairie Oyster, and they did a lot of swing, and Leon Roche even came up a couple of times, one of the great Playboy vocalists, and sang with them. And Russell was the bass player and the singer, so he was a big influence on me because he was band leader, and I learned so much from that man named Russell DeCarl. And look them up, Prairie Oyster. They're just sort of retiring now, but they had a lot of hits on both sides of the border. They were signed to a Nashville deal. So
I love that. Give it up for Brad Fordham.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
And the last member of the band, Lisa Pankratz. Hello, Wasiti, how are you?
Hi, I'm great, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, what I found out about you is that you've been banging on these things since you were a kid. Can you tell us about how you started?
Yeah, well, I was fortunate. There's a lot of music around me growing up, and my dad was a drummer, and so there was drums around, and he and his friends would jam or have bands or whatever, and so it was sort of an accepted part of our lifestyle, But I didn't really. I specifically remember coming home from school in 6th grade one day, because that's kind of all I was thinking about was just music and how to play it and how to hear it and how much all of that. And at that point, there was a drum kit set up in our dining room in Dripping Springs, Texas. And, mostly I'm self-taught. I've taken a few lessons. I was in band from 6th to 8th grade or whatever. But one day I was sitting there playing, and I went, and I was like, whoa, that's how that works. You go, like the two, one drum to the next.
Yeah.
And for some reason at that moment I went, oh, I can do this. I can figure this
awesome.
out. This was about 12 or something. And so I certainly wasn't ready to go at that point, but I was trying, and you come home and put headphones on with records, and I had a lot of records. My dad had a lot. My dad was young. They were 20, and he grew up playing music in Austin. So he was in on the original rock and roll, and he loved the blues, and then he started being a working drummer when he was in junior high school, so he'd just play out and about. So I would hear these stories. I didn't do that in junior high school, but, so he was buying lots of records. I inherited a pretty great starter kit of rock and roll and R&B 45s, that I loved, and then same thing, Buddy Holly story blew my mind, man, and and stuff like that. That and a tape that somebody gave my dad. My dad's family and a lot of his friends were big part of the Armadillo World headquarters in 70s Austin.
Didn't your dad play like in an early version of the 13th floor elevators?
No, well, so early they weren't even that. But actually, Dad and Rocky Erickson went to high school together, and they were buds. And so they played the first, they put a little lunchtime rock and roll band together. And would play in the cafeteria, and I'll say the wrong high school, I can't think of it right this minute, but they were basically playing Little Richard and Buddy Holly. That's what Rocky wanted to play at that point, And so they were rocking out together in high school, and they were friends. They would hang out and stuff. And I didn't really, none of that dawned on me till much, much, much later. But I was fortunate. You know, I remember being 4 years old, going to the Armadillo World Headquarters to see my uncle play in a band called Greasy Wheels. And they were really big at the time, very big at the Armadillo. And but even then, I remember they would do. He did a song very much of its day called Cocaine, Country Music, and Good Old Lone Star Beer. And also, they would always do Will the Circle Be Unbroken. There was just certain songs. They did lots of other songs, too, some jazzy stuff that Lissa would sing. But I remember thinking, man, Will the Circle Be Unbroken? That, you know, it kind of punched me in the head at 4 years old or something. And I got to hear a lot of great, various kinds of music there, you know. But I was just lucky. I mean, and then, you know, I went out there, and I was kind of goody two-shoes. We moved out to my great-grandparents' house, and I grew up in Dripping Springs, Texas, which at the time was much more in the country. It was not as much, it's kind of like an Austin suburb now, but it was the country then. And so on the other side, you know, my grandparents were very much more church kind of people, a little bit, much, much straighter, but really loved music. They sang in gospel quartets and things, so to their credit, they never I'm not sure they were thrilled with my dad's rock and roll lifestyle, but they never discouraged me from playing drums or anything, you know.
Yeah.
I hear from people a lot. They would come up to me and go, I wanted to play drums so bad, but, you know, my family wouldn't let me, my dad wouldn't let me, somebody wouldn't let me, and I just thought, golly, how horrible.
Yeah,
you know?
and
You started working and making money, though.
Yeah.
Well, to a degree, yeah. I mean, I started, I didn't gig out as a working musician like he did in high school, but I would go to every gig he had and play with him, or we'd go hear friends play, and as soon as I could, I started doing that. And then when, you know, and I have to say, I mean, I too, and I'll hush soon, but there's two things I want to mention, though. I had a lot of the same reaction was like, I know all this music is popular right now, but I don't like it. It doesn't move me. It doesn't sound like these cool records I have. I know that a lot of the music I love came from the blues and it came from jazz. And at some point, I started figuring out, putting all the strings together, and I also, you know, at one point it was like, well, you know, I liked a lot of different things, and then I was like, oh, well, I like some of this country music too, and this is the stuff my granddad really likes, and it's just kind of more in the air, and, you know, there's a certain amount of Western swing that has infiltrated just country music. It's considered a subgenre of country music now, but when it started, country did not want it. It was, you know, it had drums and it had stuff that they did not consider proper for their country swing, you know. So, but they've melded and they've become a thing. So now in Texas, if you're going to play in the bars, you're going to play some Western swing songs, and you know, it's become part of the standard of that era, of that style. And you know, Johnny Bush style country music always had lots of shuffles and some swing songs, and you know.
Cool. Lisa
Ray Price.
Pankratz, everybody. We are near the end of our show. We're going to hear one more song from them. I just want to say that you can find the show online, Juneau Afternoon, kto.org/Juneau Afternoon. Our theme music is by Indian Agent. Program support for Juneau Afternoon comes from Alaska Airlines Club 49, Hanson Gress, and Heritage Coffee Roasting Company. Be sure to check out Deke, Dickerson Western Swing All-Stars tonight and tomorrow at the Jack, as well as all the workshops this weekend. And I'm just going to let them take us home for this last song. I really appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. Good
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
If you want to be foolish, act like a clown, be the laughing stock of the whole darn town. That's your red wagon. That's your red wagon. That's your red wagon. Keep on rolling it along. Oh, Katie, you're overdue now. If you want to get drunk and truck on down, come on, baby, get city bound. That's your red wagon. That's your red wagon. That's your red wagon. Keep on rolling it along. Oh, a little steel guitar now. pass it to you now. If you want to go fishing late at night, you lose your bait and the fish don't bite. That's your red wagon. That's your red wagon. That's your red wagon. Keep on rolling it along. Oh, Brad, you better do it again. Woogie woogie! If you want to smoke hop, drink China tea, give your jelly roll away so free. That's your red wagon. That's your red wagon. That's your red wagon. Keep on rolling it along. Thank you very much. How about a hand for this great band?
We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. We went off the air on the radio a couple minutes ago, but we played it out because we're still live on the stream. But we're going to say goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much. Check out Dickerson Western String All-Stars, everybody.